Hello, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'm interviewing one of my colleagues and classmates who has dedicated his semester to a specific area of AI research. Without further ado, Alan, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about what it is that you are researching.
Hey, thanks for having me on this, Tom. Hey, my name's Alan. So for my project, I kind of got inspiration from my professor. A couple, no, it's a while back now, but one of our original classes, he mentioned something about setting up like a mock courtroom simulator, including, subbing out jurors, creating synthetic jurors, and kind of seeing what an LLM would decide if you gave it, a fact set and, a performance by attorneys, either prosecution or defense, um, and then have it kind of decide the verdict. So I kind of got interested in that, and I ended up finding some tools that allow you to do that using, currently available technology.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, when y'all were first talking about it with the professor, it was with regards to using the O.J. Simpson trial as sort of your test case, and then you would change demographic information little by little to see how it would impact the verdict, or you could try changing certain facts to see how it would impact the verdict. Did y'all, is that more or less what you stuck with?
So I started, yeah, with the O.J. Simpson trial because I mean, honestly, that's the only actual court case I know anything about. But um, so I the framework I built in order to simulate it worked. Generally speaking, it worked for the OJ stuff. The problem I ran into is that it seemed like for one reason or the other, I I think that, or I guess I'll show you how it's going here in a little bit. But essentially, no matter what I did with the OJ case, I couldn't get them to find him guilty for some reason. Um,
Hmm.
I talked to Professor Chandler about it, and I think we both kind of think that it's because it's such a public case that there's so much stuff on the internet about OJ that the model itself that I'm using, which I'm using the OpenAI's API key to do it. I think that that model just associates OJ with being not guilty. For at one point, I like simulated OJ in the trial and made him just like threaten the jury and the judge, and they still found him not guilty for some reason. Luckily, I had the way I made the framework, it was pretty modular. So what I ended up doing afterwards was I kind of just removed all the OJ specific facts from the simulator, and then I went to one of my friends who's in the mock trial team. I should have just asked you about this, honestly. And he gave me like a fact set about something like a utility company or something, and I just plugged it into the model, and it does just seem a pretty good job of just extracting the info and being able to be used for any fact set. And I haven't ran like extensive tests on that, but I do think that since it is not, I mean, it's like a fake case, I think. So
Mhm.
uh, it will go either way on that one. And I can show you that later too.
That's awesome. And why did you think this was important out of all the things you could choose? What made you, what drew you towards this one?
Um, Honestly, I think that there's something, honestly, like I'm not in any way interested in litigation, but it was kind of interesting to me because I could kind of see how litigation worked a little bit without ever actually having to step foot in the courtroom, which I don't really want to do.
Mhm.
And then, Professor Chandler seemed very interested in it. So I kind of just looked into it for a little bit and I was like, oh, wait, like you can actually just do this. It takes a little bit of setup, but it wasn't like, it's not like I had to like, reinvent the wheel or anything. It kind of just took existing, you know, products and tools, kind of meshed it together for this purpose. And I think I got it working pretty well. So I think kind of in the future, this can be used for all sorts of training, like for example, our, passport successes could just be done on a computer and not, we don't have to sit through a 3 hour Zoom on a Friday morning, things
Mhm.
like that.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm curious to see what your methods were and how you went about conducting this research. I know you have a pretty sophisticated handle on large language models relative to our classmates. Anytime I look over at your computer, you're running Hugging Face and
You there,
Anubis.
Tom?
Yeah, I'm
Is
here.
it
Can you hear
me?
me? Oh no.
Hello? Hey,
Yeah,
you hear me? Okay.
yeah.
Uh,
Sorry, we cut out.
yeah.
Says my internet is unstable. We've got some bad weather, but I was just saying I'm curious to see your methods because anytime I've looked over at your computer, you've been running a new program or something you've downloaded from Hugging Face. So I'm curious to see those methods. So if you've got it pulled up, go ahead and share your screen.
Yeah, let me share. Okay. You disable screen sharing. That's what it says when I click share.
When Cam did it, it prompted me to allow it. Multiple. I'll try that. Does that make a difference? Try it again.
Yep, it works.
Okay.
Am I sharing?
There you go.
Cool. Okay, so this program I found after a little research is called Silly Tavern. It's kind of like was made for just like weird role playing people made on the internet.
Yeah,
Uh,
like Dungeons and Dragons or something.
yeah, more like furries, like, but like or My Little Pony, I think is what it originally was for, but it seems like they like kind of shed that, original use, and they've been interested in people using for other things. So,
Yeah, they started
um,
thinking about money, I'm sure.
yeah, so the name
Smart.
is still kind of weird. It's like Silly Tavern, but anyways, so essentially what this allows you to do is it lets you plug into ChatGPT's OpenAI API, which it's in here. You connect it to the API, and then essentially this is like a wrapper for prompt injection, if that makes any sense. So what it does is you whenever you like you can chat with it for whatever, but before it reads your query, it reads a bunch of other information like the stuff on the here, like you can tell it like this right here, I'm telling this like character, I guess the framework to, do a bunch of things to simulate a jury. Um, there's also, like a bunch of other stuff that you can put in there. And the part I spent the most amount of time on probably is this, which was um, I had to find a way to feed a bunch of OJ information into the case and at the same time not run out of context. And this actually allows you to do that with this thing called like a lore book. Essentially, what it does is instead of feeding all this information, I have like a lot of entries in
Hmm.
this. Instead of like feeding this all into the model at once, what it does is it only pulls the big block of information that I highlighted there if it reads this keyword in your chat. So it's not storing all that information, you know, um, at once, and allows you to actually do some cool stuff and let your model know, have a lot more base knowledge than what is typically, it's usually constrained by however much context, which I mean, it's pretty big with OpenAI, but still, it's not infinite. Um, so yeah, we
And
can mess around with it a little bit.
I'm curious how, yeah, were you able to, or how do you go about modifying specific jurors to make them, let's say, more, anti-government or distrustful of the police, or maybe you make some jurors more trustful of the police and deferent to their authority?
Yeah, so how I did that was I made one of these lore books, essentially just a juror pool. Uh, so like for example, Sarah Johnson is a teacher,
Hmm.
just a little blurb about the person. Just tell as it says she's like politically moderate. Let's see if I can find the cop. Like this one's progressive, there's the cop. No, it's the accountant. Yeah, this guy's like a ex-military guy, loves cops. So essentially I just gave it 15, I didn't want to make like a ton of them, but um, and then once I gave it more than 12 at the start uh of the chat, I just asked it to pick uh 12 people. So I'm gonna switch to the narrator real quick. But also you can impersonate anybody you want. So like you can either choose to send your messages as, OJ or just like the narrator or, Johnny Cochran or I don't have the prosecution in this one, but done that as well. And they will respond uh, as if they were responding to that character's message. Um, so when I'm the narrator, I don't want them acknowledging me. So yeah, like it just pick those 12 jurors and it proceeds to the first you know statement. Here so like you have to guide it a little bit. I had the max response length. I probably should split this one up. So what you can do is I should have given it a message of so now like at this point you can switch to Johnny Cochran and you could respond with your own opening statement and then see how the rest of the characters react. Like for in this example, I'll just kind of make it really bad. See, uh, and then it proceeds to the next event that I had it doing. So it'll go through a series of direct examinations, cross examinations, and then usually that takes like maybe like 80 responses or so is usually what it turns out to. But I can also just make it fast forward to the jury verdict thing, which
This looks like it was a lot of fun to do. Just reading these responses.
yeah, you can make it do some pretty crazy stuff. And this is like fast forwarding a little bit, but usually they'll discuss what actually happened in the chat and they'll kind of talk about who found what persuasive or whatever, and you can kind of
Hmm.
adjust your strategy as needed or whatever. Um, and
I want to
then
read Thomas Baker's argument.
yeah,
What is Thomas Baker saying? Was he the one that was deferential to government authority, or
let's
which one
see.
was the? I want to see if it comes through in his answer.
He's an accountant, tends to be detail oriented and values concrete evidence over emotional appeals.
Okay. Remember how the defense pointed out all those supposed procedural mistakes by the LAPD? It makes you wonder if some of that evidence might have been mishandled or even tampered with. Yeah, that sounds like something he would care about.
Yeah. So Emily Rodriguez, the motions.
Mm,
Um, see what she had. Emily, a strong sense of empathy.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this is essentially random. I think what they're responding on is based off of like vanilla, like the regular what actually happened in the timeline.
Mm,
Whereas if I kind of went through and like simulated the entire trial, they would respond to what actually happened in the simulated trial, essentially. And
yeah.
then you can tell it to proceed to the verdict, or like at the bottom you can kind of do whatever you tell you what you want. I've had them like argue with each other for like a couple of responses, and then eventually they'll all come to like a verdict. So,
Alan, how do you imagine this use of AI is going to evolve over the next couple of years for trial attorneys?
well, I mean, I think it can be useful to like kind of inform strategy. Like, for example, if you can, this kind of is a good segue into the kind of other one I use. So essentially here, I took a bunch of mock trial facts and I fed the PDFs into the RAG system that is in this program. And essentially you can kind of use it in a variety of different ways, kind of like help you brainstorm, I guess, like examination, what do you call that? Like threads of questioning
Mhm. Yeah, direct examination or
yeah,
cross-examination or redirect.
right. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's ever gonna like, replace what a lawyer really does, but it can definitely, I feel like, augment maybe some blind spots that, you might not be aware of, or that would require, you to like actually hire, people to pretend to be witnesses or whatever, which I'm sure that no, not a lot of people will, or a lot of people don't have, access to the resources to do that, right? I'm sure, giant firms do, but I mean, this, after you set it up, takes, I don't know, a couple cents every time I do it. So, um, it definitely allows, everybody to kind of take advantage of, as much preparation ability as possible. Um, Another thing is, um, helping maybe people that expert witnesses maybe prepare for uh, being examined, stuff like that. Um, I mean, what do you think? I mean, you're probably more plugged into the whole litigation thing than I am. So,
Yeah, my number one thing is I would want to maybe, it needs to evolve a little bit more in like the size of the context window or like the amount of tokens it can take in. But
uh,
I'd love to see if, there's a situation where you could get the information of jurors, go pull up their Facebook pages and upload each juror's Facebook page or their whole digital footprint and now see how accurate it can predict the way that they're going to care about certain issues or certain pieces of evidence or testimony that come out throughout trial. So I think that would be huge. I mean, we've heard of jurors in the news, big scandals about, oh, they got on the jury and their social media shows that they clearly, are biased in this high profile case or whatever. So anyway, if that's something you can plug in here, that'd be really cool. Yeah,
yeah, I think that's actually probably doable now, assuming that everybody you're looking for actually has like a social media footprint. Um,
yeah.
uh, I have the other part of that actually working, where you just, type in something and the model will go scrape the internet for whatever you ask it for, and then print you out like a report. I think I showed that in class the other day, right? But it's obviously not pipelined into this yet. It also requires probably like a bunch of API access that people are becoming increasingly reluctant to provide, just because they don't want robots just pinging their servers nonstop.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I guess we'll end on just what do you think are the big takeaways for practicing attorneys with regards to it could be this specifically, or you could focus on AI more broadly. What do you think are the big takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, things are changing a lot. I'm not 100% sure that, or rather, I'm pretty positive that it's not going to replace, actual reasoning and analysis by attorneys anytime soon. But I think it's probably a benefit if you're able to use whatever is available in order to just kind of be more efficient, save you time. We've seen a handful of things, in class that, I mean, yeah, you could do it for sure by hand, but it, it'll probably take you, 5 hours to do it by hand, be it research or putting together, kind of like a summary of a bunch of different cases or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
but now it can be done in, under 5 minutes, and, yeah, review it, make sure it's right and all that. But I mean, even if you spend, an hour reviewing it, you're still, a net positive by a couple hours. Um, so yeah, I think for most use cases, it's probably just more of like a efficiency and like time saving thing, but I definitely think that uh, as it improves, I think practicing attorneys would be wise to, take notice of things and use it, incorporate more into their practice.
Yeah, I love this project, and I definitely think there are a couple of attorneys who were really big in the like 70s and 80s who have passed away. But from the stories I've heard about them, they would go very to great lengths to create profiles for individual jurors. Following like finding their home addresses, going to those homes at night, and writing down like information about how nice their house was, what kind of cars they drove,
Hmm.
what ethnicity they were, things like that, trying to create a profile and then sort of tailor their image to that. And so I think this is would be awesome for those types of attorneys that take that approach. This would be a huge time saver for them, especially if that individual has a digital footprint. So super awesome project. This is probably going to be one of the most fun projects that Professor Chandler gets to grade. But yeah, thanks again for taking the time to share it with me and do this interview.
Yep. Thanks for having me, Tom.
Yep. All right. See you in class.
All right, see you tomorrow.